and welcome to the Everyday Board Game Podcast with your hosts, Daniel.
And Daniel.
Daniel, welcome back.
I never went anywhere. You're the one that left.
That's true. I mean, we'll be talking about it more in the episode, but you're right. We doubled up last week.
Not last week, the week before.
Or the week before, right.
The people who are listening to this podcast or watching it again on YouTube don't know what we're talking about.
They don't know what we're talking about. We want to clarify, we always film and we stream it live on twitch.tv, which, by the way, if you don't join us for live episodes, you should do that. You know, we love hearing people joining on the conversation. Twitch.tv/everydayboardgames. Mm-hmm. But again, we try to have it so our YouTube and our podcast side always has a steady stream of episodes.
Yep.
And I knew I was going to be out last week, which I definitely was. I theoretically could have filmed, but, oh, man, there would have been so much trouble.
You just drove back that day.
I did.
No.
It was a 12-hour drive, and I got back about 7:30. You were still
out of town when we normally record on Mondays.
Yes.
And so by the time you got back on Tuesday, we technically could, because we used Tuesday as a backup day to record if possible, but you were going to be so exhausted.
I was. And not only that, my wife would not have allowed.
and
I don't blame her. Because I hadn't seen her for nearly a week, right? And she hadn't seen our son either for nearly a week, because he came with me. And then, sure enough, I mean, there would have been hell to pay. You
were lucky enough to be able to go and play board games with us that Wednesday after you got back. So
that's true. It was a question of whether I was going to or not.
And the thing about it, too, is, like, we already had a plan in place, and then you texted us, 2 hours before game day was supposed to start? Hey, I can join now after all. And we're like, Dom, damn it, Dom, this is your pick. I'm not going to force you to go pick up your games or whatnot. We already had a plan. We stick to the plan and just keep your games, your pick next week. And he's like, no, it would be easier for us, because he didn't even have his game bag in his car. Right. And he usually just comes straight from work over to the house. So
yeah, and you know, here's the thing, too, right? Like, I feel like I am very capable of adapting that quickly if I needed to, because I always have, like, about 5 or 6 rule books just in the back of my head that I've read recently. And I'm like, all right, I want to get this to the table or whatever, you know. And I could just throw together a bag and be on my way. I don't expect that from everybody else, nor would I have
The thing about it is, too, is like, if he already had the bag in his car, he even said, I would have been ready. But he would have had to go home because he wasn't expecting anybody to be there. Right. I already had the games here, so he's like, hey, we're getting a game off both of our shelves. It is a longer game, so it's probably going to be the only game we play that night. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, Which it wasn't. We did play another game. Yep. I'll talk about what we played that night in the next episode, so listen for that. But we did play a couple cool games, one that we both wanted to play, so that was really neat. And it made things so much simpler, just like, let's just keep to the plan. Yep. We've already learned how this played. Even had to go back into the rule every so often just to get clarification of stuff, but it still went fantastic. And so, it wasn't too bad. But, trying to come and record after a 12-hour drive, I don't even know if I could have played that Wednesday if I had to do a 12-hour drive.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty comfortable. We left at 5 a.m. California time, which is 6 a.m.
6 hours,
time. Yeah. And we made good timing. Going up there was like, we had a couple of delays, that we ended up
there's a bunch of construction over there, too.
There was, but, like, I'll get more into it later, but, there was just so many delays going up there that we got there much later than I was expecting. But either way,
I will tell you this. It was probably better than when I went up there, because we left for California last year on a Sunday, and we were driving up there. And we hit Palm Springs when everybody was going back to LA. So
from
we were
Coachella.
I don't know if it was from Coachella or whatnot, but it was in March. But I think just everybody had like spring break and stuff like that. So they were all going back from. We were just trying to get to Anaheim from Palm Springs, and it took us 3 hours. That's how bad the traffic was.
Yeah.
So I could just imagine what you had to deal with.
Yeah, no, it wasn't too bad. Although it did hit 114 outside. Which was pretty good.
I believe it, yeah.
Around Palm Springs area, Indio, it was about 114. But either way, we doubled up on that episode a couple weeks ago, And now we're back, and we're actually double upping again this week just to make sure we're ahead of the game for your.
I'm about to go on a trip at the end of the month.
Which we'll be talking about soon.
Yeah. So, and what's even interesting about that is not only did we double up last week, we recorded out of order, so and we make reference to it.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of what we do best. We wing it sometimes.
All right.
let's talk about today's episode. Today's going to be a board game brainstorm.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be brainstorming Istanbul from AEG.
God, this was so difficult. Is it AEG?
So,
it's Kennerspiel.
Yes. Both. It's both. Yeah. But, yeah, you're right. Pegasus Spiel. Yeah, so this was very difficult for me, too. I thought this was going to be a walk in the park, but this is such a darn unique game.
Yeah, Istanbul is so unique. It's like, well, it's kind of like that, but not really. It's kind of like this mechanism, but not really. You know, it's funny because I was thinking about it, and I was talking with my wife, and it's kind of like how you describe your personal game matches when it comes to the card games. If you like trick-taking, it's kind of like that, but not really. And it's kind of like Rummy or set collection card games, but not really. Right. And so it's like, yeah, I was like, this is kind of the same problem I've been having with Istanbul. It's because it kind of gives you this feel, but it's not really this feel. It's kind of like this, but it's not that. So how do you compare this unique game to 5 other games?
So we're going to do our best to do it. Mine are in print right now, some of them, but only one of them is a newer game.
One is, I don't think is in print, but you can find it. It's just a little bit more difficult. But I had to put something in. This is the one that made me go, okay, I think this is the closest to anything else on this list except for one other one. Yeah. And so it's just like, I thought Camelot last month's was hard because the Spiel des Jahres, the Kennerspiel was a lot of difficult because Istanbul is so unique.
No, yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll see. All right, let's get into today's episode. But before we do, Daniel, what have you been doing outside of gaming?
Absolutely nothing. But
soon. Let's carry on.
But soon. I've been getting ready for our trip. Just bought another suitcase. I'll have to show it to you because it's brighter yellow than this. Oh, and my rule about suitcases, because we're going to be gone for a cruise, and that's what I bought the suitcase for, and that's what I'm going to talk about outside of gaming, is because I need a checked bag because we're going to be gone for about 10 days. And so I need a check bag. My wife needs a check bag, and I have my carry-on bag, so that's fine. But we only had one hard shell check bag because I'm also hitting a game store while we're up there. So I'm like, I need something to bring my games back and protect them.
Do you know which one you're hitting yet?
I don't remember the name, but I know where it's at. It's generally where we're staying at. Oh, okay. I'll tell it to you. I'll look it up later after the episode. But yeah, we're going to hit it up in Seattle. It's right like in the southern part of Seattle near the pier where we have to go. So when we get there on Saturday, we're going to hit so my outside gaming is I'm going to be doing an Alaskan cruise. We're getting ready to go for that. We're going to spend 2 days in Seattle, and then we're going to hit the cruise. So it's an early birthday trip for me. I'll be turning 40 when this airs a month away, because this one will air on the 22nd. So a month and a week. So 5 weeks away from my birthday when this goes live.
Yeah, wow.
And it'll be for my 40th birthday. We're going to do 2 days in Seattle. I'm going to hit a game store over there on Saturday, and we're staying at an Airbnb that's really relatively easy to get to. The second day, we're going to hit the Seattle Zoo that's in that area, and then we're going to go to Pike's Place, which is that famous pier area, the Fisherman's Wharf type thing. We're going to go hit that, maybe hit the first ever Starbucks, just to say we hit the first ever Starbucks.
Why not?
I'm a coffee drinker, so it's fine. I'm not a huge Starbucks fan. It's like my third favorite of the main coffee places. Right. I'd rather go to Dutch Bros and Dunkin' before Starbucks. So, but I think Dutch Bros had their like in the Oregon, Washington area too.
Yeah, they started around that area too.
Yeah, so I'll be good one way or another. We're gonna hit that. I'm looking forward to the zoo. And then when we go on the cruise, one of my bucket lists is I've always wanted to visit Seattle, and I've always wanted to go to Alaska. Well, I'm hitting both on this trip. We're going to go whale watching while we're on the cruise. I'm looking forward to that. We're going to go hike Sitka, I think it's what it is, or Skagway, one of those two. Okay. We're also going through a glacier pass, and we paid extra to get one of those rooms that have a... not a balcony. I guess it is a balcony in a sense where you can just go outside and drink your morning coffee and stuff like that. Okay. I think it is called a balcony room, so we paid extra for that. paid an arm and a leg, to mind you.
Sure.
But we paid extra for that, just for, like, when we're in that area, we are able to go out and just enjoy ourselves in the privacy of our room and still be able to see the glaciers and the glacier pass and stuff like that. And our final day is going to be in Victoria, Canada. We're going to be doing the famous gardens there and the butterfly garden there. So looking forward to that. It's just something I've been wanting to do, and I finally get to pull it off. I still haven't been to Chicago, which is one of my goals that I was supposed to do this year. Wasn't able to get up there because we spent a lot when we went to Gamma Expo. But it was worth it a lot. And it's funny because I'm like, I was going to try to do it again next year, and then I'm trying to weigh, like, should I go to Gamma again or do another thing? Because it's growing our podcast by doing stuff like this. So it's like the catch-22 is like, I had really fun at Gamma, but this is stuff that I want to do. And so, but I'm looking forward to this trip. Can't wait to do it. Let's talk about your recent trip.
So I just checked. Grants Pass, Oregon is where Dutch Rose came from.
Okay.
Yeah, so the past trip that I just had, wow. This was a bucket list. Hands down. I've been wanting to do this since the 90s. This is an event that they've been doing. It was the X Games. And even though I'm an old man now, which is fine, I brought my son, who is a teenager, and he didn't really know what to expect. You know, he didn't really watch it with me whenever I'd watch it every year.
And it's not really his style.
Yeah, it's not his style. Like, he was never into BMX or skateboarding or anything like that, right? But I was like, you know what? Just the stuff that these guys do is just entertaining to watch. Yeah. I was like, go with me. You're the only one who can. And my daughter and wife went a few months prior to that to Universal Studios in Florida for a cheer competition with my daughter in. Yeah. And so we were like, okay, this will be an excuse for me. I could take my son to a California theme park, you know, while we're at it, for him tolerating me going to X Games for a few days. Otherwise, it just would have been me by myself, you know. Yeah. So I'm glad he went with. On the way up there, you know, we drive up to Tucson, Phoenix, through Indio, all those places, right? Yeah. Between Tucson and Phoenix, there was an oil tanker that flipped over and broke open. Oh, God. Yeah, so that was one of the delays that we were talking about. The other one was just general construction. But
well, were they still slowed down when you get to the California-Phoenix border?
Yeah, it was pretty slow there.
That's so weird to me that we had a border crossing in the United States between two states.
Yeah, because of the agriculture stuff. Yeah. No, they mostly just like, all right, you're good, all right, cool, move on. So it was pretty quick, but it was still like, still having to stop. Yeah. That's one thing, but on the way over there, we stopped at a place outside of Phoenix, and we're like, oh, let's just find a quick place to grab lunch. We stayed there. And outside of there was not only a distribution center for Five Below, but also Funko. And I was like, what? It's like this massive Funko warehouse. I'm like, hold on. Wonder if they have like a storefront or anything. So I started looking into it. Apparently they do warehouse sales every once in a while, but I don't think it was that day. It was like a Thursday morning or something that we were there. So we're like, oh, that'd be cool, but you know.
You already have stuff you got to do. Tight window.
Yeah, exactly. Tight window. So we kept going. Stayed at in Camarillo, California, which is kind of in between LA and or it's between Thousand Oaks and Ventura. Yeah. And it's, you know, a small little place. I think it just became a city because enough people live there.
It's in that metropolitan area.
Yeah, so. Exactly. But it's outside enough where it's not like
ridiculous.
It didn't seem ridiculous. The traffic was fine. It was easy to get to. But I gotta say, out of all of the places that I've traveled to, like recently, all this stuff, every single person that was in a customer service standpoint that we interacted with California, amazing people. Oh, yeah. They were happy, they were friendly, they were having fun. Like from the guy who was at the Motel 6 to the employees of the game shop we went to everyone involved in the X Games, to every single restaurant, waiter, hostess, whatever. They were all fantastic. So I was pretty stoked about that. Anyway, fast forward to X Games. The reason we were there. Beautiful weather. Had to wear a jacket at some point. It was pretty wild. Got to see Tony Hawk in person. That was cool.
That's neat.
Got to see like a lot of like the celebrities that or the skaters and all those. I guess they're celebrities, right? Nigel Houston won gold, which was cool. I was rooting for him. Nice. Got to see Daniel Sandoval and Ryan Williams and just all of like these crazy like Alex Sorgente, like all these cool people, right? That you're probably like, Sure.
Whatever. I know some of them, yeah.
Yeah, you know the name Tony Hawk. But what was crazy...
No, I know some of the... Like, I watch skateboarding. It's fine. I just don't have ESPN anymore, so...
Yeah, well, they stream it all on YouTube. But at the competition, during the vert competition, there was a freaking 9-year-old who was competing.
Oh, is this the one that hit, like, 4 900s in a row or something like that?
He's the only one in the world who can do it. And he's 9 years old.
Yeah.
And Tony Hawk was sitting there as, like, one of the commentators as they were doing it. And... Like, he never was able to do it during our competition, though, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But just the fact that we're watching this kid launch himself in the air, like, 30 feet or whatever, on a skateboard, being 9 years old, and I'm thinking to my students that I teach that are 9 years old, it's like, how? Like, this is wild.
Yeah, it sounds wild.
Yeah, it was very entertaining. And it was really cool because some of the sponsors of it, there was Sonic was a sponsor. So they had, like, one of their parks is a full Sonic-themed thing. That was okay, whatever. But Cinnamon Toast Crunch was a sponsor, and they were giving little mini Cinnamon Toast Crunch sundaes the whole time. That was awesome. And the drink Jarritos was a sponsor as well.
Ooh, and that's some good stuff.
They were giving it out for free the whole event.
That's crazy.
Like, so at any time, you could just go over to their booth and just grab a free Jarritos. Oh my goodness. My son had never tried it before.
He's never had a Jarritos?
He never had.
Oh.
No, he has once. He had one of the orange ones, and he was like, it's not Fanta, so I don't like it, kind of thing. But this was like many years ago, when he's still pretty picky, but now he's more open to it.
I was going to say, he likes the, how do I say it without getting us to monetize drink, compared to the Mexican drink? You don't know the story about Fanta, do you?
Oh, yeah. No, I know. Yeah, no, but I'm changing that subject real fast. No, but... He tried it for the first time. He was like, all right, I guess I'll try it, whatever. And he tried it. He was like, oh, wow, can we get another? I'm like, let's try another flavor. Let's get fruit punch, and then let's try lime, and then let's try all these. And he had never tried those ever. And he was
my favorite Jarritos is the tamarind.
So that's the only one I don't like.
I love that
I don't like tamarind at all. Oh, my goodness. But I do like orange quite a bit, and lime is pretty great. And fruit punch is good, too. Like,
their fruit punch is delicious.
Yeah.
I just don't drink regular sugar sodas anymore, so if it's not a zero, I don't really drink it.
Exactly. But now we're going to have to buy cases of it because of my son. So that was cool. One of the souvenirs that we bought, they had X Game branded Sharpies, which is pretty awesome. Because why not? I got to buy that, right? And then after we were all said and done, right, with the event, 3 full days, I got to see Wiz Khalifa. So that was okay. I don't know. I'm not a fan of Wiz Khalifa.
Nor am I.
But I am a fan of Cascade, and I saw Cascade.
Now, if he made a song Blue and Yellow, I mean, we would be using his...
Then we'd be on brand, right? No, but then I saw Cascade, which I'm a big fan of. That was cool.
Cool.
And then at one point, there was a celebrity named Miha. She's like a new DJ that's like brand new. Yeah. Only like people who are really specific into techno know about her. But we saw her in the audience, and we actually, like, while the women were doing the street skate competition, so we took a picture with her. That was cool.
I love street skating. It's so neat to see.
It really is.
I am personally a vert fan, but I'm big on park. More and more to street skating.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. Yeah, no, and then so we met Miha, and then there was a surprise performance out of nowhere from Machine Gun Kelly. Like, he just... Yeah, I know. Whatever. At least I knew the name. Like, I gotta give it that much. But here's the funny
man
thing.
Who got beaten so bad in rap, he had to change genres.
Probably.
No, that's the joke, because he got into a diss track, or a diss war with Eminem.
Oh.
And then literally after that war was over, he started making rock music.
Yeah, that's fair. But you know what was funny, though? I'll give him a little bit of credit. I don't like his music, first off. But I will give him credit, because I was like, what... Because everyone's like, there's a surprise performance. We don't know who it is. Like, go look at the stage. So we all went. And it was like, it's Machine Gun Kelly. Go on. People were like, yay. But there was so many technical issues with the music. And it kept, like, cutting out, or it accidentally, like, jumped to another song, or, like, or just completely silencing out, whatever.
Yeah.
And, like, after, like, the third time, he was like, all right, everybody. You guys, technical guys, you guys figured it out. This surprise performance has turned into a meet and greet. And he jumps off stage like, how's it going, guys? he starts talking to people.
Okay, that's cool.
I was like, that's genuine. And then, like, he got back up on stage and he tried it again and it cut to another song. And he looked at the camera and he was like, yo, knock, knock. Who's there? Not this music. I'll tell you what. I was like, the guy was pretty funny. So I was like, he should be a stand-up comedian. Maybe he'd do better than that.
My only problem with the X Games nowadays is they got away from what they were about in a sense with like when it comes to the music aspect of it too. Because the big thing about the X Game is like you had all like the punk bands there. So.
Yeah. So that's actually what I liked about it. They had 12 performances, right?
Yeah.
The first day was all hip-hop and rap.
Which is fine.
The second day was all techno and EDM. And then the third day was all rock and
that is kind of cool that they were doing that.
Yeah, so they all kind of highlighted different genres per day, which was, I can appreciate that. So, anyway, X Games over, amazing experience. Took my son to the beach, and we played Seaside on the beach, which was advertised as one. You could actually play Seaside. Yeah. We legit played at Seaside.
That's the game that I wanted to pick up. Well, I was talking to the wife about that. I wanted to do it either in one or two ways. Having lunch on Pikes Peak, which is the pier by the sea, or doing it on our balcony and the thing literally at sea.
Little at sea. Do you want to? You can borrow mine if you want.
I think we're gonna pick it up at the store.
It's only like $30. Yeah, it's pretty inexpensive. Good quality components.
Yeah, really good quality components.
And then that night after we got back, that was Sunday night. We went to a game shop. I'm not gonna say shop. It's a board game club, is what it is. It's a board game library, and they sell like a couple of like supplies for various trading card games or packs or stuff, and they had a very small selection of games, but their big thing is like $7 per person per day, and you just come and hang out and play.
That's kind of cool.
It's called Xander's Game House. I wanted to give him a shout out because the employee, super cool dude. Forgive me, I forgot his name. But, yeah.
You gotta start writing this down. You keep forgetting people's names.
I do. I'm terrible with names. But, no, the employee who we spoke to, I want to say maybe Noah. Anyway, forgive me if I forgot your name, but if you ever hear this or anything, shout out. Xander's Game House in Camarillo, California.
Cool.
Go check it out. Very cool place. I'll show you pictures of it later. And then finally, we saw Universal Studios.
But I knew about this. We talked about it last week, you and me, during game night.
I mean, if you've been, you know, Super Mario Land, awesome. Revenge of the Mummy.
Great ride.
Love that ride. Oh, my God. That and Jurassic World were the only two we rode twice because I just love it. And I was incredibly impressed by the Harry Potter ride. Like
the Escape from Gringotts?
Or no, it was called like the Journey to.
Yeah, no, it's the one I couldn't go on because I couldn't get the over the shoulder. Like now that I've lost all the weight, I can do it.
Then I highly recommend it if you get a chance at some point.
We're going next year in the Orlando side.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I was really impressed with it. I didn't get too motion sick with it. So I've heard it's pretty questionable about that. But.
Yeah, I was going to tell you is like a lot of the Universal rides are the 4D rides, and so people can get motion sickness off of that.
Yeah, I did on Krusty.
Yeah, I was going to say
that one messed me up pretty bad.
I like that ride too. I like that Krusty.
It was fun, but it was bottom of my list because of that.
Because of that, yeah.
Except for Secret Life of Pets, that thing is trash. Like,
that is a good ride.
No,
if you have kids, you went with a teenager.
That's true. We went on every ride. That game is trash. Or that ride is trash. I'm sorry.
No. The trashy ride is the Mario Kart ride you went on at Universal Studios. That is by far the most hyped and yet the lamest ride out there. It doesn't feel like Mario Kart at all.
I felt like that was probably my favorite 4D experience.
That was maybe my least favorite 4D experience out of that entire park.
Really?
It was the biggest disappointment that I've ever been on when it comes to rides.
Really? Wow. I mean, it wasn't that bad for me. Although I will say, like, the part that they apparently didn't do for the studio tour was upsetting for us. That was pretty awkward. I mean, not that I like everything else was great about it, but then like one of the Fast and Furious portions of it just didn't work.
Yeah, I think that you ran into the problem that there are things because there's 3 rides on there's 3 rides on that tour.
Yeah.
And it's funny because if you go to Universal in Florida, there are actually 3 individual rides. You all get those rides on that tour. I guess it wasn't working for you guys.
No, I guess not.
Because you had the Fast and the Furious, you had a King Kong one, you had a Transformer one.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 there. They're okay. They're nothing great. It's
just Orlando, right?
Yeah. Well, there was the same rides we did in those 3 rides on the backlot.
Okay, because we didn't have a King Kong one either.
Well, yeah, because I guess they weren't working.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't do the Fast and the Furious or it didn't work, they just didn't do the other two because I guess they weren't working either.
Yeah.
Because what happens in the Universal Studio ones, your little cart gets locked into place for it to become the 4D ride for you.
Oh, no, did we have the King Kong one? No, we did. Yeah, the King Kong one was a thing. Yeah. Okay, so the King Kong one, the Subway one, those are both ones.
Yeah, the Subway one was supposed to be, I believe, the Subway one is not a ride. It's basically showing you how they do movie magic. That thing was neat.
Yeah.
That was my favorite part of the entire tour.
I liked it.
Other than the fact that you go into the actual lot where they filmed all the Universal Monster movies.
Yeah, I'm sure that was your favorite,
yeah.
Right?
I love that. I'm like, I know that place. I know that place. I saw that in Werewolf.
And I gotta say, the Waterworld show... Wow.
That is cool.
That was incredible.
We didn't get to see that last time we were there. It was shut down because they were revamping all that part of the area.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, man. That's got to be point number one for you. That was so good.
No, it's fine.
It made me want to watch the movie.
I've
heard the movie is like...
The movie's good. I like it. It's a cult classic kind of movie. Mm-hmm. It's fine. The problem with the shows is that when I go to the parks... Mm-hmm. I go with people who don't want to do the shows. They want to do the rides. So
I do both.
Yeah, but I just, if we have this time to do this or this time to do this. So I had to fight to get the backlot tour.
Oh, okay.
So I got the backlot tour because I needed something to stop and rest and relax. Yep. And I've always wanted to do a backlot tour. Was able to do it. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I know. You were like, that was your favorite.
That was my favorite. Well, it was my biggest surprise.
Yeah.
Honestly. My favorite probably at Universal is the Mummy.
Yeah.
I do like the Lost World water ride too. But when we were in Orlando, or not Orlando, LA, when we did it, it was so freaking cold. I didn't want to do the water ride again.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you see pictures of us when we were there, we had to wear jackets because it was raining most of that week we were there.
So both times for the Jurassic Park one, I got put front row. Both times.
I believe it.
I was very soggy that whole experience. Both times. And the second time was literally in the middle, in the front row. Like, I was dead center, and there was a TikToker on the right side, like on the far right, like filming as we were doing. I was like, bro, put the phone away. Like, you're gonna lose it.
Before we move on to our segment that we need to do.
Yes.
Tell the people your experience with the donuts.
With the lard lad?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Delicious. That was our breakfast and lunch the following day.
Because they're so freaking huge.
So big. They're the size of your face.
Yeah.
I of course, got the pink sprinkled. My son got the chocolate.
Yep.
Delicious. They were actually really good the next day,
especially when you think about, like, the... for an amusement park.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was kind of spoiled for me when we did it at Universal Studios in Florida. Mm-hmm. Because we had Voodoo Donuts before we went into the park, and then we had the Lard Lad Donuts, and I'm like, I mean, these are good, but I just had the big Voodoo Donut. So
on our way out through the city walk, there was not only that, but there's also like Sparks or something, like mini donuts. And I was strongly considered getting regular sized donuts, mini donuts, and the giant donuts, and then just like that's my meal for the next couple days.
Oh, God.
Like just nothing but donuts.
Now I can't even have donuts. Well, I can, but it's not recommended. I'm trying to be healthier and stuff like that, so I've cut out a lot of carbs.
Yeah, they're too sweet now, honestly.
Yeah, they probably are, because my coffees are black all the time, except for like a little soft top that I put on there.
Yeah.
So when I have it, my wife made a sugar-free cheesecake, and she put the cherry on top, the cherry like pie filling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Honestly, that cheesecake needed because it was a chocolate cheesecake and it was very rich, but that is the sweetest thing in that entire pie because we don't cook with sugar. She's been looking for like sugar substitutes and stuff like that just for me to be healthier because I'm logistically cutting out carbs. So my last check, my A1C was a 4.9. So
nice.
The average is 5.2.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome. Keep it up.
You're
doing good, man. You're doing good.
I'm working on it. So, yeah, the whole blood work and stuff like that. My main thing is I got to get my cholesterol down. I'm now almost into normal ranges. It's just that's the main thing I have to do. Yeah.
That's right. You're almost there.
Almost there.
Almost there. Skip and hop away, right? Well, let's get into today's episode. Speaking of skipping and hopping.
Honestly, you are skipping and hopping because you can only go so far.
Movement is kind of skipping and hopping, isn't it? Istanbul. We both really like this game.
I love this game a lot.
Yeah. Do you want to describe it or do you want me to?
Go ahead and you describe it better than I do.
So Istanbul is a game designed by Rudiger Dorn, which if you're not familiar with this designer, he makes games that are... They're kind of like new takes on traditional style games, but the mechanisms he does are simple but very unique, and I've always appreciated his style. So what Istanbul is you're in a race to either be the first to get 5 or 6 gems, depending on the player count. And you're going to get these gems by either selling goods or money for gems in the market that expands, or trading in different types of resources for different things, or upgrading
or
your
fulfilling
engine,
contracts.
or fulfilling contracts. Being the first to do like certain parts of it will get you gems as well, but mainly you're going to be trading in resources or money to do it. There is 16 tiles in the base game that get mixed up, and or you can have it as a set arrangement. On your turn, you're going to be moving your main piece 1 or 2 spaces away from where you're at. Mm-hmm. The space that you land on, you must be able to either let or set down one of your discs or retrieve one of your discs to your stack. That's how you have to plan out your movement. If you go far away from the starting point, then you have to be able to backtrack your way back there in order for it to be able to do the action.
Yep.
Now, when you either drop off or retrieve one of your discs, you do the action that's on the tile, which will be any combination of getting resources to trying to get money, to trading in those resources, all these different variations. There's literally 16 different actions. And some you can even edge your bets and throw a gamble down, which is pretty exciting. Some you can send like people's relatives to prison. Some you can find extra security guards that will give you, or the Baron tile, whatever it is, the little disc that will give you extra resources. Or you can get other cards which will give you one-time abilities. Or you can upgrade the spaces in your wagon. All sorts of combinations like this. It's so unique, it's so fun, and it makes you feel so clever. I absolutely adore this game. It's one of my favorites now. And I think for a while, it hasn't hit my top 100 for a while.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to rehash itself ever since we did that playthrough a number of months ago. Because then I just remember, it's like, man, this is just really...
It's so simplistic, too, but it's so difficult to master.
Yes. Yeah, and there's so many different ways to do it. Like, just when you're about to, like, really knock off, like, a really cool goal, somebody else wins all of a sudden.
Yeah,
you're like, wait, huh?
Aww.
How'd you get 3 gems in 2 turns?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Whew, you pulled it off, yeah. So, this was difficult.
This is one of those games that you always describe is making you feel clever.
Yes.
When you do something very spectacular, it makes you feel clever.
Yeah. Yeah, if you set it up in just the right way, you're like, I saw something that nobody else saw. I'm going for this. Like, and you get like the maximum amount for a contract.
Yeah.
You get all sorts of good money, get some good resources, and you go in, buy the gem really easily, and you still have money extra to do. Yeah, you just feel really cool. With that being said, though, we were talking. This is a hard episode for us.
This is really. Before we get going, my wife just texted me because we were talking about the where we're gonna go. It's Blue Highway Games in Seattle.
Blue Highway Games, cool.
Shout out to them.
All right, yeah, and probably more of a shout out. We'll see.
Yeah.
But so with that being said, though, is that since it has such unique mechanisms, and kind of like, I mean, it's a kind of a dry theme. Like you don't really feel like you're going to Istanbul, but probably more than some other Euro games.
Yeah. It's closer to theme than some of the Euro games we've played before.
Right, than a generic trading in the Mediterranean, which is literally what this is. But with that being said, though, a lot of my games are questionable. We always break down our 5 criteria, which are ease of play,
replay value,
meaningful choice,
game immersion,
and art and production. And when we describe these, we'll explain which game we picked. So if you like any of those categories, or if you like Istanbul for one of those reasons, you can get recommendations from us.
And the thing when I had to do this one, just because Istanbul is so unique in what it does, I had to go in further and not only break it down by what our criteria is. Yeah. I'm like, if you have you like that feeling that it does for you, then this is also the game I recommend on that one, because there is nothing that really matches Istanbul for what it does, unless you're including like the dice game or the split and choose game.
The spin-offs.
Yeah. Which I don't like to do because I want to talk about different games.
Right. We're giving recommendations based on that. Yeah, so because vice versa, if one of the games that you like show up in our recommendations list, there's a good chance you'll like
Istanbul.
Yeah, for the same reason. All right, with that being said, you ready to get into today's episode?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. We're going to be starting off with me, and this is Ease of Play. And this is a game that was a Spiel winner a number of years ago. And this, Istanbul at its core, is a pick up and deliver game. That's kind of what it is, except you can pick up different things in different spots and deliver them in completely different ways to different locations. And I felt like the movement mechanism was one of its highlights. And even though it's a simple movement mechanism, it's a little tricky to grok, but you get to feel really neat when you pull it off and when you build up just the right path and you can come back, which is what we're kind of talking about. This game also does that. While this is also a pick up and deliver, you're trying to go to a bunch of different of these cities. First one to get to those cities wins. And this is a race as well, or a certain number of them. And you're going to be employing the different types of mythical animals in the area to traverse the different kinds of terrain. This is Elfenland.
That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, I know you don't like it.
Well, no, I said there because you said Spiel winner. I'm like, it's not turning taxis. It's hard to get in game.
Yeah, no, that's Elfenland's not much easier right now, but it is doable. But like, the Elfenland, the way it works is that you're playing these cards, kind of Ticket to Ride style, but you're moving your piece amongst the areas. And you have to go a certain distance. And in order to do so, you have to play certain types of animals. So it might be like a boar, or it might be a dragon, or whatever. And they will tell you what types of terrains they can traverse. And you have to get just the right combination to go, okay, I need to get to this city. So let's play a dragon, an elephant, and let's get here. Boom. And because that's the only way I could have done based on the landscape that's there. It's one of those that you feel rewarding when you pull it off. When you get like a really long distance because you got the right cards, you're like, cool. I can't believe I pulled that off because I got just the right things I needed to move. Now I'm way ahead. Now I've gotten the location from here. Now it's just a skip and hop to this location, and then there you go. You're done. The game ends when when you get to a certain number of cities, and then it's over. I like it a lot. I get why you don't. And it is one of those, it's pick up deliver-esque, but it's really more of just like smart route building. And once you get that, like it's very abstract at first. You're like, well, okay, so this card can go like on water or like only forest land, but this one can do air travel from one to another, but not over mountains. Like once you figure that whole system out and what everything works with, then the flow goes and you start really enjoying it.
All right, so going into my ease of play, this one was a tough one for me because Istanbul is easy game to teach and understand and learn and stuff like that. It's hard to grok your brain specifically how this works. So I wanted to go something that gives you kind of that feel, but I want it to be a little bit more easier to grok and stuff like that. Istanbul is also a race for points. So I wanted to give a game that gives you that kind of feeling too. Now, I'm not a fan of this game specifically, but I enjoy it, especially one of the remakes of it I thought was pretty cool because they changed something up that made it a lot more less slumlordy that you can get, and this one is Splendor.
Oh, okay.
And the reason being is because, one, it's a very simplistic game, and people are going to have a good likelihood to figure out how to play this game because of the engine building aspect of it. But it is also to teach because it's basically either you're grabbing gems or you're buying cards, which is going to allow you to buy stuff, and it's a race to points, just like Istanbul. Istanbul is, depending on the player count, is the first one to 6 to 8 points, depending, again, on the player count. And I believe Splendor is the first to 15? Or 16?
Yes, 15.
15, yeah.
Yep.
I do like the Marvel version of it where it forces you to have to go into the higher levels this way or else you cannot get the winning hand.
Yeah.
I do like that aspect because I've seen where people slumlord it and just straight up sit at the bottom and just bing, 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 bing and get their points right there. And nickel and dime all the way to the victory. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of it. But Istanbul is so unique. It's just like, how do I give you the feel of the easiness of Istanbul But you can play it with like grandma or your sister or people who are just not into gaming. Splendor is the way to go because you do feel clever when you do get those combos out there. It is easy enough to teach, but it's not as easy to gronk when you're like, okay, now if I do this and do that and stuff like that. Yeah. So for me, it was just that Splendor was the best one to fit in this spot, really. Right. This was like the last one I actually came up with because I couldn't figure out what could give me that good, simple Istanbul play.
Yeah. And now, just to clarify, because I forgot to do this at the beginning of it, ease of play breaks down in 3 sub-criteria. Oh, yeah. And that breaks down into simplicity and familiarity of the mechanism. So if it's a mechanism that we're familiar with, like Yahtzee re-rolling 3 times or whatever, then that's comparative. Then likelihood to get to the table based on mechanism or theme. And then finally, is it easy to understand, learn, or teach?
Yeah. And so that's why, based on those criteria, that's why I went with Splendor, because it gives you a lot of the feel that Istanbul does, like with the race to points and the simplicity of the mechanisms. Like you either get gems or you turn in those gems to get cards.
Yep.
That simple. So yeah, ease of play, Splendor.
Cool. All right. Next, we're going to go into replay value, and that will be Daniel starting off.
All right. Replay value here is the length and time in scaling well for the game, the minimum number of plays for the full experience, as well as expandability if there's existing expansions, future expansions, or expansions that have been confirmed by the designer or publisher. So this one was another one that was really tricky for me because Istanbul doesn't have a lot of expansions. It has 2, I believe, and I have the big box version of it, and doesn't really need the big box.
Really doesn't.
But the fact that the minimum number of plays of the full experience, you're never going to use all the tiles in one go. You can randomize it, modify it however you want. So you want something that fills that modular feel. And something that plays really well between 2 players and 4 players, if I remember correctly, is the max?
2 to 4.
Oh, 2 to 5.
2 to 5, sorry.
Yeah, so what I went with is a game that I recently just played. Once again, it is a race to the finish line. Kind of like when you're talking about Elfinland, where you have to play cards to go a certain way. I don't own this game, so I don't know.
I'm looking for the one that I was going to talk about. Go on.
So Elfinland, so you got to play cards to go through certain categories. Made by another prolific designer who's won Kennerspiels in... I don't know if he's won a Kennerspiel, but he's won a Spiel des Jahres. And this is a game from the Dr. Rainer Knizia.
Oh, okay.
This is The Quest for El Dorado.
Oh, okay.
It's a nice little deck-building game that has a couple expansions. It's a race to the finish. There is some modular based on the cards that you have in the game. The board can be set up in different ways, too, so there's some modular there. Each person can play their own style however they want, so if you're really building up to go through the jungle, you can avoid water as much as possible. There's points where you still have to go through the water. But you all can play in whatever style you want to do, which some people do in Istanbul. Is like, it's a race. Okay, I'm going to make sure I get all the resources and get all those gems first. Make it more expensive for everybody else to get those gems in Istanbul. Yeah. Or in Quest for El Dorado, I built my deck in this way so I can go through the forest really quickly, and now I'm close enough to get to this village where I can start getting more cards that work for me now into my deck. And so it just the only one that really gave me that really good racing feel that at its core what Istanbul is. It's a race to points. And so the Quest for El Dorado is race to points, but you want to be the first one to go through. So there you go. So my pick is the Quest for El Dorado.
Very cool. So this is my biggest stretch by far, because this does not yet have any expansions. There is one in the works that should be coming soon. This also is only 2 to 4, and this has no modular setup. So hear me out as I say this, and I was really aiming into the length of time and scaling well, and the minimum numbers of plays for full experience. So when you play Istanbul, you understand the full experience after the first play.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be the same setup every time.
Yes.
But it's the same game. You understand it. You know where to do it. But one thing that Istanbul does well is that there is multiple paths to gaining those gems. And one game you might focus really heavily on getting an empire of money. And because there's no limit to that. So you might be really about buying and selling your goods so you can get money to buy the gems. Done. Other times you might focus on trading. You might try and go, okay, well, I'm going to get the trading resources. I'm going to fill out my cart so that way I can get more. I'm going to really try and fulfill these contracts and then get gems that way. And there's multiple paths to that ultimate victory.
Yeah.
And that's where I think this is the comparison between those, is that knowing how to play the same thing in a different way is where I think Millefiori matches this game.
Hey, we both went with Reiner Knizia.
Yeah, we did. And even though, like I said, there's no modular setup, except for there is cards that you're drafting every round,
yeah.
And that is effectively the modular setup, right? Though your cards, like what you want to go for, might not come up when you need it or when you want it, really.
One expansion.
There is one expansion. Like I said, it's not out yet, but not here.
It is. I was gonna say it is out, just not in America.
Not here, yeah. We haven't played it, although we're gonna.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But this is just one of those ones where it's like, okay, well, if we do this, or if we play it this way, I can really focus on this part of the board, where I can focus on crafting glass this time, or I can work on keys this time, or shipping goods, or all this different stuff, right? Multiple paths to the same general victory, and it helps you feel like clever. Again, I understand this is kind of the stretch, but if you like the clever aspects of that, I feel like you're going to get the same number of plays from Millefiori as you do Istanbul.
Okay, cool. I'm not going to argue with that. I agree. Millefiori was on my short list. And then I thought of Quest for El Dorado, which is that race.
Which is, yeah, that's a good one. Had I thought of it, I probably would have considered it, but I didn't.
You know how I thought of it? Mm-hmm. I was looking through like the games that I've played. I'm like, does anything... I didn't even think of Millie.
Have we ever broken down Rudiger Dorn?
I don't know if we have. I think he was on our short list to get broken down, but we should
definitely do that, because I think his stuff is just weird, and I thought about putting another one of his games on here just because, but it's very different games, so I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
so they're all unique. Let's go into meaningful choice now. So I'll be starting this off. So meaningful choice, what this means is the three sub criteria that we have. First off, how well can you impact the strategy and the tactics of the other players? What is the depth of tactics, strategy, or skills that you need to have in order to do well in this game? And finally, do you have a plethora of arbitrary choices or analysis paralysis that will hinder the game? This game, this is mechanistically one of probably the closest one. This is a pick up and deliver game that employs a very unique mechanism in order to move. Because you could either just simply cozy along, or you could discard, jettison one of your items to shoot around planets in different directions. This is Space Junk from Daniel Salas.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Wow.
Yeah, the more I thought about it, this is the one that I think makes the most sense, and it's also incredibly unique.
Still don't like the box choice.
Well, the new one is a box.
The new one is a box. Yeah.
The new one's a box, but the tube, sure. But you have these 3 planets that you're going to be orbiting around. You follow their orbits around. You can't change direction mid-orbit, which makes sense. But in order to travel from spot A to spot B, you jettison one of your junk. If it says the number 4, for example, you move 4 spaces in that direction. If you happen to land on somewhere that you can give one of your items, then you give one of your items. I felt like there was a lot of the same clever feeling of combinations in this movement versus the same as Istanbul. And while it's not a one-to-one comparison, I feel like a lot of that
choice... Is there ever going to be a one-to-one?
There won't be, not to Istanbul. And that's why, if you like that unique take on pick up and deliver, that you have to think cleverly on how you move in order to deliver said items, this is up there, I think. So, Space Junk, Daniel Salas, Renegade Games now, in a rectangular box.
All right, so for my meaningful choice, this is the one I said I don't know if it's in print, but you can find it. It's a little tricky.
Okay.
It does have 1 or 2 expansions. Not that it matters in the meaningful choice side of things, but just to let people know. And it's... The way I have to describe this one is our friend, Gamehead Geek, described Istanbul as kind of Mancala-esque when you have to pick up your stack of pieces and move them. The only difference is you're firing off a location in Istanbul. The one I went with, you're firing off the pieces that you last went with.
Yep.
And this is 5 Tribes, the Djinns of Nakala, from Days of Wonder, Bruno Cathala.
Yep.
So I was like...
I saw this one coming.
Yeah. You're trying to figure out what pieces you're going to move, and what piece that finishes up that grouping is what you're going to fire. So if you have the red piece, you're going to assassinate somewhere across the board. If you got a white piece, you're setting up merchants, I believe what it is. You also have, it's basically the next step up a complexity compared to Istanbul, so there's a lot more strategic strategy that you got to do. Now, arbitrary choice AP is going to make an issue in this game, which is kind of like where I'm like, should I put it here? But it does mechanistically feel like the next step of Istanbul when it comes to that Mancala mechanism. You have to play efficiently, so you got to be very strategic in how you play at your level, as well as the impacting of other players, because if everybody sees that move and it gets to you first, then you get to do that move. Now, other people can decide that they want to get ahead of you because they know the round's going to end, so they're going to bid to go first to possibly make that really good move. Yeah, you're wasting your victory points to go first, but now you have that very powerful move that everybody saw before they can actually fire it off. So gives you a lot of that feel where you're like, all right, I'm being very clever and I'm being very strategic on what I'm doing. So for me, it had to be 5 Tribes because that Mancala mechanism really gives you that feel of taking your stack and then firing and dropping off in that one spot. That's where you're going to fire off. And so Mancala gives you that same feeling. So 5 Tribes also gives you that same feeling because I'm going to do this. Yeah, it's a great move I'm setting a great move up for someone else.
Yeah.
But this is going to be really good, and it really gives you that, I did really well, that was really clever, I got smart, so I got all my points that I really needed to get here. So and for me, it's 5 Tribes.
Cool. Awesome. Let's go now into game immersion.
So for game immersion, we're talking about, is the game fun to lose? Is there player interaction in the game, whether it be table talk or role-playing? And what are those stand-up memorable moments? You described one of the memorable moments in Istanbul where you're like, all right, I got this really clever plan coming up, and it's like, wait, game's over? What?
Yeah.
Now, for me in the game immersion, there's not a lot of player interaction in Istanbul other than when that one family member's out there, you're like, nope, that guy's going back to jail.
Yeah, which is hilarious.
It's funny.
Honestly.
But that's really the crux of it, because you don't block anybody off from any space. You don't really do anything. You're just moving your stuff and trying to be efficient.
You do have to pay them when you get there.
Oh, yeah, but I'm saying there is some interaction. But it's not really like the role. I don't really feel like I'm a family member sending my people out to go help me buy stuff.
Yeah.
But it's still a very fun game. It is fun to lose. It leads to those fun, memorable moments. In the game I chose to do, this one is chock full of that kind of stuff. It's kind of a pick up and deliver. It's a dice chucker. I just recently played it, and I just recently talked about it. It is in print, just recently back into print. Sure. It is a tabletop game, so you can go watch it being played by the tabletop crew. And this is Fortune and Glory, the Cliffhanger game. And this is, like I said, it's kind of a pick up and deliver. You're all trying to get a certain amount of idols to get enough fame points to win the game. So again, it's a race to... This is probably one of the closest games to what Istanbul does, because you need a certain number of fame by picking up a certain amount of resources and doing a certain number of checks of
very
some sort.
Very different theme, but very immersive. Yeah.
So you get really into it. You do get the asymmetrical powers by playing your character. My character had a certain power. Gamehead Geek couldn't win the game. He needed to have 2 more points because he played a really dirty character in a sense.
Right.
So you have that role-playing aspect. You get really into that immersiveness of your character. There is a lot of dice chucking because it's basically dice skills. If you fail, then you flip a card over, and then you have to wait till your next turn to determine if you finish and pass that cliffhanger. So it is a good blend of Euro with Ameritrash, more on the Ameritrash side of things. But yeah, it is completely immersive, and that's why this was the easiest one for me to put on this list. Was Fortune and Glory, the cliffhanger game.
So mine, this game could have been on most of these categories, and that's because this one is also kind of a pick up and deliver, multiple tile game. The different tiles have different actions as soon as you clear them off with your pieces. You already talked about this game. This is 5 Tribes. This was the first one where I was like, that is
the Mancala part of it.
Yeah, these games are so intuitive, like together, so intertwined because they're so unique, but they also do a similar idea. And so the one that I thought made the most sense because it's a dry, dusty Euro game, but with beautiful components, was game immersion because it really you have the same moments where you move pieces to a way where you feel really clever. The game goes by pretty fast. You have the same level of interactions. Like you were going to do this move, but I just fulfilled this contract, and now it flips over. So now you can't. So, or it's not as good as you think, right? Yeah. They're both fun to lose. I just felt like this was the most immersive.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. I just think it had more meaningful choice. That's why I put it there. But it was going to go in one of those two spots.
Yeah, it was going to go in one of the two. Yep. So. And had I not thought of space junk, it might have been a meaningful choice too. Yeah. All right, and finally we have art and production.
This is you.
I'll be starting this off. So art and production, quite simply, the art, the piece of components, and the graphic design. The iconography on Istanbul, really clear. Mm-hmm. You pretty much know what you're going to be doing. Piece of components are pretty decent. It's not like an insane amount of components. And the art itself is okay for a Euro game. It's one of the better looking ones. So I picked one that looks kind of cool, has some special components in it, and is also a dry, dusty Euro that has decent iconography. This is Stone Age. Yep. That art and production-wise, I feel like they're just comparable. I mean, you're not getting an amazing amount of art. You're not getting like beautiful like landscapes and stuff. It's not Ian O'Toole's art or whatever. That's Sobel. You get artists, and they might actually be the same artists. I'll look into it. But Stone Age and Istanbul has very similar styles to art. The images that they do use are pretty clear. The cover is both generic, but they both have like the cool little like presence. So like the red gems in Istanbul are very satisfying, whereas like the wooden dice and the dice cup in Stone Age is also really satisfying. And then just overall good components, very functional. The pieces are good. I don't have any complaints about any of them, but that's probably the closest one I can compare it to. I thought about Splendor, but the poker chips just didn't quite, although the cover is spot on. Yeah.
The new cover looks a lot better than it.
And there's a whole series of like different generic covers for Istanbul that you could be like, it's like Johari or Basari or any other random trading in the Mediterranean. It's Concordia as far as the art goes,
Yeah, so this is probably my biggest stretch out of all these games, and I don't know how you're going to feel about it, but I wanted to get something that gave you the kind of the same theme, per se, that Istanbul is basically trading in Istanbul and collecting and stuff like that. Yeah. So I went with something that kind of gives you the same feel, does make you feel clever when you play smart in this game, and you love this game. And it's a 2-player only version, which is kind of like Istanbul. Yeah. This is called Jaipur.
I should have thought of this one. Yeah. No, that's a good one. That's a very
2-player game, well produced. You are getting a set collection in a sense. You're either being the camel slumlord in this game, or you're trying to get a certain amount of points before the other player. I can't remember exactly what it is. But you're trading in carpets, and a grouping of carpets gives you so much points, and you're taking the top
most
highest
points at the end of the round.
Yeah, it's the highest carpet, or the total in a sense. Yep. You're taking the highest token. The tokens are really well done. The card quality is fantastic. The art, especially in the newer version from Space Cowboys, is through the roof. Yep. everything you would want in Istanbul for a 2-player trading in not even the Mediterranean, trading in the Middle East type game, and you feel clever when you do something, and there's no pick up and deliver, there's no movement or stuff like that. It's just very clever card play, which is what you want for like a 2-player game that gives you that Istanbul feel, but for 2 players. Yep. And so for me, my art and production is Jaipur.
I don't disagree with that. I think it was just the size of it that was the only thing
that took you away.
But,
but again,
it's about as spot on as it gets as far as
it's kind of hard to come up with a 1-to-1 ratio when it comes to Istanbul.
Istanbul is just so cool.
Yeah, I got to give you a feel somewhere around there. So if you love the set collection aspect of Istanbul for like the trading part of it to get those points, this is where you're going to get it in this 2-player game. So
very cool. All right, well, with that being said, we hope you've enjoyed this episode, and hopefully that's given you some new ideas for if you like Istanbul or if you like any of the games we discussed, to check Istanbul out. There's a reason we tote it so often. It's so good. If you ever want to contact us directly with your thoughts, or whether it's to say hello, or give us ideas for future episodes, or enter in a possible future contest, join us at email us at everydayboardgames2020@gmail.com. Also, start following us on Instagram, instagram.com/everydayboardgames.
As well as all video re-uploads are found on YouTube at youtube.com/@everydayboardgames. And if you like what we do, there are 3 things you can do to help us grow on the platform. Subscribe if you're not. Like the video, and comment down below and tell us your thoughts on the subject.
And if you ever want to join us on live episodes, like any of our friends that joined us today, and talk in the discussion and hear us as we have shenanigans and technical issues in previous episodes, thankfully none so far today.
Now we're screwed.
Yeah, I've jinxed it. Join us at twitch.tv/everydayboardgames.
And as always, all audio versions can be found on most podcast platforms under Everyday Board Games Podcast. This includes Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, and Apple.
So I want to thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I've been your host, Daniel.
And I've been your host, Daniel.
And thank you for listening to Everyday Board Games.
And remember, every day is a good day for board gaming.